folks, welcome back. Professor H here. I'm so glad to be back in business and back online with you guys. I am so sorry for last week's breakdown in technology. It does happen and makes it very difficult to administer online classes. The good news is that we got an extra week to study for quiz 3, and I think that's actually kind of important. Even though the quiz study guide for this upcoming test is not very long, we have to remember that we are building on all of the skills that we mastered for the first test and for the second test, and then adding all of these skills on top of it. And some of these things are a little bit more complex, as I'm sure you've noticed from the creation of the combination charts. We're going to work on hierarchy charts today and inserting comments. There's a lot of technical elements when we're dealing with charts, so I want to make sure that you guys had time to sort of practice some of these things like gradients, textures, editing your plot lines and your plot areas, all of that good stuff. So let's jump over to the discussion for this week, which is building this hierarchy chart. Building hierarchy charts can be a little daunting. We have a lot of information here. So we've got first employee names, then we've got their titles, then we've got who they report to. So notice in this column where I gave you the information on who they report to, I give you what tier of the hierarchy chart they should be in. I do this so that you guys can count the levels to make sure that you've done things correctly when you're done. So essentially, once you build this chart, there should be 6 levels on it because we have 6 tiers, if that makes sense. So we're going to start with inserting a hierarchy chart. So for some of you, you'll be able to go into the Insert tab, and there will just be a button here that says something like Smart Art. If you go to Smart Art, that is where you're going to find the hierarchy charts. For this version of Excel, I have to go to Illustrations, then I have to go to Smart Art. For some of you, Smart Art will just be sitting right here somewhere in the chart area. So we select Smart Art. Then we go down to hierarchy. And you'll notice if we hover over these, there's different things. So there's an org chart, a picture org chart, name and title org chart, right? All of these kind of have different names. I'm actually going to have you build the one that's actually titled hierarchy. These mostly all do the same thing, especially these top 4 that are organizational charts. Hierarchy and organizational charts pretty much show the relationship between a bunch of things that work in a pyramid. So you're going to see these most often at jobs, right? You're going to see a bunch of people at the bottom report to somebody above them, who reports to somebody above them, who reports to somebody above them, etc. So we're going to build the one called hierarchy. I'm going to put it in here. And then this by itself is kind of daunting. So we've got this place where we can go and we can actually start writing things in. So we'll start from the top down and we'll do this manually so that you know how to do it manually. So we would do something like we'd put in Marcy and we'd put in that she's the president / CEO. Okay, and then we got to see who reports to Marcy. So this is where this gets a little tricky. So next, you've got 3 people that report to Marcy, right? You can see they all report to Marcy. So she needs 3 people under her, but there's only 2 boxes here. So really what's easiest for hierarchy charts when you're building them from scratch this way is to build them from this dialog box. You'll see a faint arrow here on the side of your hierarchy chart. I always tell students, build from here. Don't try to write in here because it gets very confusing when you accidentally add boxes. They're extremely hard to delete. It's much easier to do it from over here. So when we do it from over here, this box automatically gets selected. Okay, so who reports to Marcy? Now we just slide over and we see that Keaton Taylor reports to Marcy. So we've got to put him in first. Whoopsie, sorry, I'm grabbing a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to put Keaton Taylor in here, and then Keaton's job title, whoops, I've got a typo. And then Keaton's job title is VP Operations. Great. And then along with Keaton, we want to remove one of these. we've got Andrew Jackson, or Andrew Johnson. And Andrew Johnson is the VP of Finance. Great. And who's the last person we've got? The last person we have is Leslie Rudo. And she is the VP HR. Okay, great. So notice that somehow we've had this other box populate next to Marcy, even though she's the only person on top. What you want to do is when you get to a new dot, the way that you put a box under somebody else is to press tab. So if I press tab once right now, it's going to move that box to be under Marcy, which it did. So now this person would be in line with Keaton and Leslie and Andrew. But there are only 3 people that report to Marcy. So the next thing we have to do is press enter again. And now the person is under Leslie. If we want to put somebody under Keaton, we click enter and then we click tab again to move them underneath Keaton. If we want to put somebody under Andrew, we go to Andrew, we click enter. It's going to add another person under Marcy and put them on the same level as Andrew. But if we want them under Andrew, we click tab and they move under Andrew. So we now have our first row done and our second row done. And I always tell students, go ahead and like highlight as you go so you know who you have already put in the chart. Okay, so now we've got Luis Zapian, who reports to Leslie. So we've got a box under Leslie, so now we put Luis Zapian in here. And we know that he is a director of training. Great. And then we've got somebody who reports to Andrew. We've got Genevieve DeLuca. And she is she's the controller is just what we're going to say. Then we have somebody under Keaton. We've got Leticia Williams. So we're going to put Leticia under here. And she is director of maintenance. Great. So now we've got these 3 filled in. And we've got 3 rows, right? And they're nice and clean. So we know that all these people report to Marcy. Great. And then this person reports to Keaton, this person reports to Andrew, and this person reports to Leslie. So now we're ready for our 4th row. So now we've got 2 people who report to Luis. So how do we add them? We go to Luis, we click enter. It adds them next to Luis on the same level, but we actually want them under Luis, so we press tab. So who's our first person? It's Katie Jensen. And who's our second person? We can actually press enter this time and we don't have to press tab because this person also reports to Luis, and that is Jane Kanagawa. Perfect. So now we've got the 2 people under Luis. All right, we also have 2 people that report to Genevieve, though. So we need to go back to Genevieve. We click enter. They're automatically on the same level as Genevieve. To get them under Genevieve, we click tab. Okay, so who's our first person? It's Steve Goldblum. And then we need to add a second person. For this one, we just can press enter because we want them on the same level as Steve Goldblum. And that is Jose Ruiz. Perfect. So anytime you want to add someone under another person, for example, we still have 2 more people that report to Leticia. We go back to Leticia, click enter. That puts them on the same level as Leticia, but they actually report to Leticia. They're under her, so we press tab. And who are those 2 people? We've got Jackson Whitman and Antonio Lefroy. Okay, so now let's take a look. Let's just exit out of here really quickly. Okay, so how's it looking? Does it look right? We've done all these folks. So we've done 4 tiers, and we can actually count them. So we can see we've got 1 tier, 2 tier, 3 tiers, 4 tiers. And you can see that all of the people roll up to the correct people. So Jackson reports to Leticia, Antonio reports to Leticia, Steve reports to Genevieve, Jose reports to Genevieve, and so on up the line. So this is the easiest, I won't want to say the easiest, this is how you manually build a hierarchy chart. You go to SmartArt, you select hierarchy, you choose which chart you'd like. You can do name and title of organization chart, org chart, hierarchy chart. Then you start building from the first row with the first person on top. Again, I would not, you can write in these boxes. You can edit them, just by typing in here. I do not recommend that. It is very hard and confusing to delete the boxes and type from here. Please build it from this dialog box that comes over here in the arrow. I think it's so much easier to keep everybody organized and to add and delete people. For example, let's say we made a mistake and only Steve was reporting to Genevieve. All we would do would be go over here and delete that button entirely. Now we just have Steve under there. Whereas if we want to add it back, we just very quickly click enter and put it back. So it's a lot easier to build from this dialog box. And I was like, something went wonky here. We got to put her in. We got to put him in, and then we got to put these two back in. Hierarchy charts can be very temperamental. So building from the dialog box, much easier. So I'm going to leave that there. I think we've gone through enough of that. And then the next thing I want to show you is how to insert comments. So when I tell you to insert a comment, I don't mean to just literally go write a comment here and say, hello. What I actually am asking for in the homework this week is for you to insert an official comment. So those are located under the review tab of your homework section. And all you need to do is click into whichever cell I ask you to put it. So let's say I ask you to put a comment in cell B3. I'd actually go click B3. I'd click new comment. It says Derek Carlos because I'm using my husband's computer. We would write hello because that's what I asked you to leave. And then we would simply click out of it. You will know that your comment has stuck when you see a little red triangle here. And if I hover over it, the comment will display. I can also go into a sheet and go up to, again, in the review tab to show all comments. And if I had multiple comments, they would all remain displayed if I clicked show all comments. If I unclick it, they're going to go away, but those little red tabs are going to stay as indicators that there are comments floating around inside the sheet. And when I hover over those, the comments will display. So that's it for this week, folks. I wanted to make sure that we got caught up on these two very complex things, particularly the hierarchy chart. Oh, wait, no, I actually wanted to also show you guys how to format information in gradients and things like that. So to format cells, this is something I talk about. You actually select your cells, you go format cells, you're going to get a dialog box. I think I mostly ask you for fill. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can do a color fill, which just makes our cells a different color, right? We know how to do that. Or we can do things like patterns. So I can say, I want to go pattern, and I do tell you this. So I might say thin horizontal crosshatch, and I might say color light gray background to darker 25%. And then we'll go no fill here. And this would be what I'd be looking for, this crosshatch pattern. You can also do this on something like a hierarchy chart. So let me think about how to build a chart really quickly or open one. Let's go back to our assignments. Sorry, my computer's going a little slowly. So let's do this. Let's go to our chart homework and I'll show you how to format a data set. You can do it, computer. Okay, so let's say we're doing this as I'm in protected view. I'm like, why isn't this giving me any options? Okay, let's highlight all this. Insert, let's go, let's just make a bar chart for this, even though I asked y'all to make a pie chart. So let's say we do it this way. Okay, so another way to format your data is I may ask you to format your data series. Okay, so typically what I mean by that is I want you to actually format the data, which would be represented by the bars or the chart trend lines in a graph. When I do this, I want you to go right click. I want you to go format data series. And then you can have some options here. So we want to go fill because we're wanting to edit the fill, and we could do a couple things. So we can change the color of the data series just by, holistic color, or we can do something like a patterned fill. And I could say I want it to be vertical stripes dark, and I could tell you that I want it in green, right? And it'll do all of that stuff. So formatting data series, sort of like formatting plot lines, right? Remember how I taught you how to format plot lines? For the data series, you need to select the data series. When you select them, they should all select all together. So you can see that every bar is selected here, just the same way when you select a plot line, all the plot lines are selected. Data series, right click, format, and then go to the fill. So you can't, it always automatically takes you to series options. You need to go to fill and line, and then depending on if I'm asking you to do a pattern or a gradient, right? We can also make our data bars gradient. So we could say we want them let's do this one, top spotlight accent 2, and then I might tell you that I want the direction to be from the top right corner, and then our data bars would be formatted correctly. Could also tell you I want that done in something like red. Okay, so that's how you format your data series. So we have covered data series, comments, which is not on this list. I won't put comments on this test, but I think it's a good thing to start learning how to do. We've done combo charts. We've also done shapes. So I think I asked you at some point to insert an arrow. Inserting an arrow is going to be just the same as inserting the lightning bolt, which we did a couple weeks ago. So all your shapes are in here in this kind of illustration / smart art territory. So if you want an arrow, you select it and then you just drop it in there. And now we have an arrow. All right, folks, that's it for this week. I am wishing you good luck on the test. Email me if you have questions or anything else. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys next week. All right, bye-bye.